For the first 30 years of IBOA's existence, the presence of women in banking was rather exceptional. Both for customers and for employees, banking was almost exclusively a man's world. In many parts of the country, the perception of women in banking rarely extended beyond the statues and sculptures that adorned many premises. When IBOA achieved recognition in 1919, around 100 permanent lady clerks were employed in the Bank of Ireland, with 3 more in the other 8 banks combined. There were also around 300 more temporary lady clerks across all the banks. Most of these had been taken on in a temporary basis during the war. Many were designated as temporary, even though they had clearly become permanent by this time. But the designation was important, since it enabled the banks to pay them less. As it prepared for the arbitration tribunal after securing recognition, IBOA held meetings of its female members in Dublin, Belfast, Cork and Waterford to canvass opinion. While some demanded equal pay, others indicated they would be satisfied with a simple pay increase. In the end, IBOA sought a lesser scale of pay for women than for men. In the event, the tribunal recommended a uniform pay scale for permanent employees across all banks. While the annual starting salary for both men and women would be £100, annual increments would lead men to a top rate of £450, while female staff could aspire to a maximum of £190. And temporary lady clerks fared even worse. While IBOA shared the disappointment of its female members, its declared policy was to focus on securing permanent status for temporary clerks. It achieved an early breakthrough in November 1920, when the provincial bank placed its temporary clerks on the same footing as its permanent ones. The female staff of Irish banks continued to work under conditions which were much inferior to that of their male counterparts, and this treatment was something which surfaced repeatedly in the decades that followed. By 1939, there were 464 women in IBOA out of a total membership of 5,310, almost 9%. As the value of women workers began to be widely acknowledged as a result of their experiences of the Second World War, IBOA adopted a policy in the 1950s which amounted to equal pay for equal work. Women were elected to the Executive Committee, including Eileen Keogh, Emily Soff, and Maureen Collins, who in 1958 became the first woman to be elected as an officer of IBOA when she became Assistant Honorary Secretary and Treasurer. Yet despite the groundbreaking nature of these achievements, no photographs of any of these pioneering women have been preserved in the IBOA archive, if indeed they ever existed. And at successive arbitration meetings with the banks in the 1950s and the 1960s, the union argued for improvements in pay, allowances, bonuses and promotional opportunities for women. But these arguments were usually rejected. In 1963, IBOA's organising secretary, John Titterington, warned the Irish Bankers' Joint Committee that unless the banks paid lady cashiers the male scale plus the rank allowance, strict measures would be taken, even to the extent of the withdrawal of labour. The Executive Committee are not prepared to allow the banks to cheapen this important position. Negotiations between the banks and the IBOA continued without resolution through 1964 and 1965, and discontent on this issue was influential in provoking the 1966 strike. In the event, a new promotional scale was introduced for women in 1966, while the 1970 bank strike delivered an automatic right of promotion to senior bank official grade for women after 12 years. Not equality, but another step in the right direction. Entry requirements for women were largely the same as men, but after 6 years' service, the experiences of male and female bank staff began to diverge dramatically, mainly as a result of the marriage ban. As women in banking were obliged to resign their jobs when they married, female staff generally had shorter working lives and were concentrated among the lower grades where they mostly operated machinery and acted as secretaries to managers. In 1971, it was claimed that 94% of men with 22 years' service had achieved promotion, compared to only 2% of women with the same service. Of course, the marriage ban also affected the progression of women within the union, since once their banking careers ended, they ceased to be full members of IBOA. So many potential activists had been lost to the union. In 1973, IBOA reached agreement with the employers on the removal of the marriage ban. And with the enactment of equality legislation in both the Republic and the UK, the principle of equal pay followed. A further breakthrough came when female bank officials were entitled to automatic promotion to the senior bank official grade on the same basis as their male colleagues. The 1970s certainly marked a watershed for Irish working women, but the campaign for workplace equality was far from over. Although some symbolic landmarks were reached, these were notable by their exceptional nature. As the barriers to the progress of women at work proved depressingly resilient, the campaign for equal rights for Irish working women continued into the following decades. Although by this time women constituted a majority within Irish banking, they were still concentrated in the lower ranks and routinely passed over for promotion. A survey in 1986 noted that, although 79% of senior bank officials were female, 61% of officer grades were male, with 85% of assistant managers and close to 99% of managers. The union's continuing demand for improved promotional opportunities for women in banking undoubtedly contributed to Bank of Ireland's pioneering decision to appoint an Equal Opportunities Manager in 1986. At the same time, a series of IBOA members' meetings and seminars on equality led to the formulation of a list of demands for action by the banks, including a fairer approach to staff training, the appointment of equality officers in all banks, the inclusion of women on interview panels, the development of childcare facilities in the workplace, and the elimination of loan discrimination. Equality of opportunity was formally included as an objective in the Union Rulebook in 1993, and an equality subcommittee was established. As well as highlighting the underrepresentation of women in senior management positions and the vulnerability of temporary and part-time workers, the subcommittee has been instrumental in broadening union policies beyond issues related to gender and marital status towards other areas of discrimination in an effort to advance the development of a more inclusive workplace, such as procedures to combat bullying, harassment, and sexual harassment in the workplace, the provision of childcare facilities and other measures to promote a better work-life balance, along with steps to eliminate discrimination on grounds of sexual orientation and ethnicity. The allocation of a senior union official with specific responsibility for equality issues was a further indication of IBOA's commitment, which was also reflected in a number of initiatives developed in partnership with the Communications Workers Union and Mandate. As well as undertaking to equality-proof all union policies, the union has also taken a number of steps to promote the active participation of women members in its affairs, including training and personal development courses. The progress of women within IBOA reached a major landmark in 2001 when Susan Bustard, an employee of Ulster Bank in Belfast, was elected president. And with women occupying around 50% of seats on its executive committee, the union decided to discontinue the provision of reserved seats for women in 2007. The union's second female president, Margaret Brown, was elected for a 2-year term in 2009. She was succeeded by Jessie Doherty in 2011, while the newly rebranded Financial Services Union may soon be celebrating the election of its first female president, Sharon Macaulay. The pursuit of greater diversity at all levels within financial services is a key element in changing the culture of the sector, moving it away from the reckless pursuit of short-term excessive profit and towards a prudent and socially responsible quest for long-term sustainability. The principles of equality and fairness are vital elements in this change agenda,